Energy is back at the Woody as the Buckeyes come back from their first ranked win against Penn State. We all saw the celebrations in the locker room, including Jim Knowles' dance moves.
Big hit in the 80s.
But Coach Day says that win really showed them that they can do this. Halfway through the season, Ryan Day says that this team has been tested more than they usually have.
I think we know we can do it. It's been 2 weeks in a row we've done that now. Do I think that we should be in that situation in that game? No. I think our execution has got to be better this week, for where we need to go and what we want to do. But we also know the game of football takes twists and turns along the way. You're going to find yourself in games. There was pluses and minuses on both sides, positive plays on both sides, negative plays on both sides. But you got to win the game in the fourth quarter, and a big part of that is being physical, so that you can control the game at the end of regulation. And like we did, we milked the clock there with 5 minutes plus to go in the game. And I've been in games before where in 5 minutes there's about 4 or 5 different possessions. You just go back and forth, and it turns into a a shooting match where 35-28 or 48-42. And this one here, we ran the ball and milked the clock and finished the game that way. And that's what this game needed. You never know what's going to come up next. If we don't get the stand on defense, offense has to go out and get a score. So whatever it takes to win the game is what we got to do. But it all comes down to how physical we are running the football and stopping the run.
And he provided an update on Tyliek Williams after he went out with that injury against Penn State, saying that he's doing good and he's day-to-day.
Tyliek's doing good. He's day-to-day. We'll see how he comes in.
The defense put on a dominant performance, keeping Penn State from scoring in the red zone down after down. And Jim Knowles says that is what the expectation should be, because that's the standard at Ohio State.
You're happy for the players, for all the work they put in, and we've been preaching that has to be our standard. It just has to be the expectation. So it builds confidence, and I think not just in the players, but the whole team or the whole staff or fans. I mean, when you have a defense that you can count on, I think it just mentally gives everybody a sense of calm.
The defense needed to make changes after the game against Oregon, and Ryan Day said that they re-engineered that side of the ball and had to focus on what they're best at.
But it wasn't, that's what I'm saying, I guess. It wasn't like, hey, we're redoing all of this. It's like, let's just trim all this out of here and just focus on these things right here. These are the best things we do right now, and then kind of go off and have the one-offs from there. So, again, you didn't all of a sudden start to see, 3 down front, so it wasn't like that. It was just really cleaning up some of the communication, how we do things, putting the right guys in the right spots. But it doesn't take much to be a little bit off, and I think that we're moving towards where we want to be, and there's going to be really good offenses coming at us here soon. By the way, I think Purdue's offense is playing well. I think both quarterbacks are talented. They do a good job on offense. So if our guys think that they're just going to go out there and play this Saturday, they're wrong. I think they're a much better team than their record shows. So we got to have a great week of practice and keep growing. And if anybody in this building here is thinking about last week, they're distracted, and that can't happen.
Against Oregon, Jim Knowles said that the defense tried to play specifically to the Ducks' offense, which made things get out of whack. Over the past few weeks, they went back to his comfort zone. That's going back to the basics and focusing on the fundamentals, which is why the defense looks a lot more like it did when he was at Oklahoma State.
I mean, I think there's a lot of truth in that, and that's kind of what I say, getting back to basics and what works, what gives your guys the best chance to succeed, no matter where you're at in playing defense. So I think you're right to say that. It's just a process of going back to the basics. Alignment. Things got out of whack in that game somewhat, and you're just trying to give the players every chance to succeed. So for me, it just all goes back to the basics. You know, you can get yourself out of whack sometimes trying to match people up and get everybody in the right places and be perfect. And in that game, or really any game, you know, we realized it's more important just to have guys with their feet set and ready to play when the ball is snapped. So it's really just back to basics. Feel comfortable with it. You know, I mean, what happened happened. So you have to look at yourself, and it's my job to have the answer. So, I mean, I know systematically what the answers are. So getting back to that. So there's definitely a comfort zone to it.
Another unit that needed improvement and stepped up in a massive way against Penn State was the offensive line. And Coach Day gave credit to Carson Hinsman moving in at left guard so that Donovan Jackson could move over to tackle, and they both graded out as champions.
You know, I think anytime you're making a move like that in a big game and going against a high-end player like Carter is, you know, there's a lot to process there, but he never flinched at all. You know, he never thought twice about it. He embraced it. I think, you know, Justin did a great job of preparing him, you know, in 1 week. Now, he had been getting reps out there in practice, but it's not the same as preparing to play in a game, especially when you're on the silent count, especially against a great player like Carter. And so, you know, we really did tailor the game the best we could around that. There was a couple third downs. We just had to call and play it, and we did help with the cadence at one time, and then Carter got us, you know, on the other ones. But I thought Donnie absolutely just fought his tail off and played physical the whole time, and wore those guys down, and embraced a new role in a tough spot. So I think he can be a very good tackle. I mean, just watching his athleticism, his length, the way his feet move. I mean, he can play good tackle for us. Now we got to keep getting him the reps and keep getting more and more of the experience of being out there in confidence. But you know, he's showing now that he can play both positions. So I think it's only going to help him. Carson has toughness. Carson has athleticism. Carson's smart. And I think after watching the film and maybe not taking on as much of the stuff in terms of making all the calls and everything like that, that maybe having sat there next to him and Donnie over here next to him allowed him to focus on his job and not, you know, be worried about all the different things that happen. Like, you just can go play football, and that's what he did. So I think there's a lot of growth and maturity there emotionally. So yeah, both graded out champions, and I thought they played their best down the stretch, in particular that last drive. So that's good. That should, again, keep saying this, build confidence as we move forward. Both those guys being in that spot. So new challenge this week. You know, that game's behind us. You know, time to focus on Purdue.
The offensive line will remain as it did at Penn State. If Zen McKelkey becomes available, that would just give them another option, but they're going to roll with what they have right now.
We'll see. Yeah, right now we're going to stick with what we have. If Zen were to become available, then that would give us more options. You know, I don't think he'll be available this week. He is getting better, so we'll kind of see how he is and have an update later in the week. But I think right now the focus will be to stick with what we got right now, because we feel like there was good synergy coming out of that game.
The offense was able to turn things around after early mistakes from Will Howard, and Ryan Day praised Will's ability to have the next play mentality, saying that Will's even better at moving on to the next play than he is.
He definitely does. He's got a knack for that. And I you know, we talk a lot about, there's a fine line of, like, you know, you make a mistake and it's like, oh, I should go on to the next thing. Well, hold on. We just, you know, have a major problem here. So there's that fine line there. And so what we try to do in practice, and I try to do, is whether it's a quarterback, the kicker, the left guard, or, you know, the corner, is, you know, make it hard for them in practice. When they do make a mistake, I mean, just, you know, get all over them so that they feel what that's going to be like in a game, and then you watch to see how they respond. You know, if that play bogs them down for the rest of practice, then you know we got some growing up to do here. And so we try to do that in practice, but Will's not somebody who's been in the program for a long time, so I can't sit here and say that, you know, any of the coaching staff has any credit for that. This is something that Will's had, and, you know, whether he earned that or learned about this when he was in high school or gained it from being at Kansas State, you know, you'd have to ask him. But that's something that we all try to do. You know, again, it's a corner getting beaten a goal ball. You got to, like Davis and the way he came back after getting that, that completion on him, they did call the hold on him to come back and make that play. Like, that's what you have to do in these types of games. And I will say that I do feel right now in the middle of the season, probably more than in years past, that we've been tested more. Our players have been tested more, the team's been tested more, so that we're a little bit more resilient than maybe in the past. And we played against teams or had games where we found ourselves in games that were a little bit lopsided, and you don't really get tested, you don't really get put into some of those tough situations. So we're counting on that to be a difference.
I can't say enough amazing things about those guys and the way that they stepped up and took on the challenge, because they were hearing it, man. I mean, we all felt it. They were hearing the flack that they were getting. We couldn't run the ball against Nebraska, and obviously, that's a team thing. That's not just the O-line. That's everybody. And we looked at it and we said, what, we're going to go physically impose our will on these guys, and I think we did that. And I think Donnie moving out to left tackle for the first time he's ever played tackle, like, that was unbelievable, going against a guy like Abdul Carter, like, who's a hell of a player, and to play as, it wasn't perfect, but to play as good as he did, like, I mean, unbelievable. And Carson to never play guard, to come in like that. I mean, he's played a lot of football, so we all had all the trust in the world in him, but he played unbelievable. I think Tegra did a really good job. I think Seth played a hell of a game. Josh Fryer, like, those guys, they proved themselves right, and they've been hearing it. They wanted to prove everybody wrong, but they proved themselves right on Saturday.
The ability is not something that Will has always had. He said that he really had to work on it and gave experience from freshman and sophomore year at Kansas State, and that this is something that he had to learn to develop for these big moments.
I would say I was bad at it my freshman and sophomore year, to be honest with you. And I just felt it so many times, because I think my freshman year, 2020, I threw like 8 touchdowns, 10 or 11 picks, just was struggling, turning the ball over, and I just didn't know how to turn it around, and when I finally realized that, how important that next play after that pick is. And that was, I think it was really my junior year I figured that out. I think the first time I really experienced it was at West Virginia in 2022. It was a cold game. I threw a pick 6 against them early in the game, bad read, just threw a pick 6, and nobody said anything to me. And this was probably the first time that nobody had really said anything to me at K-State after a pick, and they were just like, let me alone. And I just went around to the whole offense. I was like, we're fine, don't worry about it. The next play, they came out and we ran like a deep corner route off of a sprint out to the field. And when I felt like, oh, they're still believing in me, they're still throwing the ball, and I went out there and ripped it, and it was like one of my best throws of the day. And when that moment happened, that was kind of the turning point where I was like, man, like, it's really about how you approach it and how you respond from it. And I threw a pick 6 early in the game, and I threw, I think, a pick 6 at West Virginia my freshman year, and I ended up throwing 3 picks that day. We lost. But in that game against West Virginia in 2022, after that pick 6, I bounced back and threw like 2 touchdowns and had a great game. And I was like, man, the 2 games started kind of the same, but they ended differently. Like, I looked back and I was like, how did I approach that differently? I was just like, I just said, screw it, move on, and didn't really let it affect my confidence. And, it took taking some hits and taking some, some lumps early in my career. But once I was able to kind of work through that, I was like, man, it's all about how you respond. And it's the next play after that bad play, because as much as I'd love to go back and change that play, you can't do it. And so you just got to move on and you got to make it right. And, I think I've gotten better at that. I still could be better, of course, but, I've just played a lot of ball and seen a lot. And so I feel like not that much phases me anymore.
Is this something you've done on your own, or have you had external help, whether it's a sports psychologist, a coach?
Definitely a little bit. Yeah, definitely a little bit of all that. I've worked with sports psychologists. I work with Sharon here. She's great. My mom's big on that. Like, she's always instilled in me, like, your mental preparation is just as important as your physical preparation. And that's something I think I understood a little bit more when I came here, is that, I want to get my body ready and have my body ready for the game and do my recovery. But, what am I doing to recover my brain, and how am I, whether that's, taking some time to get away from the game a little bit, maybe after the game, and having some escapes, but also being able to just have a sense of security and not, because when I was young, I used to make a mistake and say, man, like, am I that good? Am I good enough? And now it's like, I am. I believe that I am, and when you believe that, and when you don't let one play shake who you are, I think my faith has helped a lot with that. I think just playing for a bigger purpose, it helps you move past obstacles like that, and my trust in the Lord, and just saying, I know you got a plan for me, and I think that's been a huge help for me too.
The College Football Playoff Committee will release their first rankings tonight, and Coach Day says that really doesn't matter. They're just focused on Purdue.
No, just focused on Purdue. That's all that matters. Rankings right now for us again don't mean anything, because you got to keep winning, and that's for us. Every time we walk off the field on a Sunday, no matter what happened the game before, that game is over with. It's on to Purdue.
Purdue does not have the best record, but Coach Day gives the Boilermakers lots of credit in making sure that the Buckeyes stay focused, because they're a lot better than their record shows.
I think Purdue, their record may not say it, but they've been playing good football, and we've got to come in and play physical in this game, and we got to continue to build on what happened last week, and that's what today's going to be all about in a Tuesday practice, because whatever rankings are, they are. As we've always said, the ones that matter are the ones at the end of the year.